Ooh, look at that water. Oh, yeah. Oh, man. You got to shout. I think you guys got to come back.
You're good.
You're good.
I want to thank everybody for coming today. Today is a special occasion for Santa Barbara and a special occasion for the United States of America. I would like to introduce you and like to have a nice round of applause to our United States of America President-elect, Ms. Audrey Addison Williams.
Thank you, Gary. I want to ask us to bow our heads for a moment of prayer. I know we all come from different faith traditions, and I want to honor that in this moment. So by whatever name you call God, or if you do not believe in God, let's say the Creator, the sun, the moon, the stars, the earth, let us just pause for a moment in reverence and appreciation for all that we are as Americans. Father, Mother God, divine presence in whom we live, we move, and have our being. We come before you with appreciation for all that we are as Americans and all that we are not. Because we realize in the current crisis there are opportunities, infinite opportunities for us to stand and rise and come together as one American family. And so today is a beginning, dear God. Open our hearts and our minds. Bring us closer to one another. Help us to do the work to leave the past behind and help us to see the glory and the promise that America is called to be. By all the names that we call God, we say thank you, and so it is. Amen. I am delighted, honored, and feel so privileged to announce that I am officially entering the race for President of the United States of America. I'm running as an independent. I am in this race to win. This is the beginning of a new day for America. It is the beginning of a new American story. Why am I here today? I have 7 grandchildren. And when I'm long gone and I've passed from this earthly plane, I'd like for my grandchildren to be able to say that in 2016, my granny rose up and she said that women need to lead. I'd like for them to say that despite the vicissitudes of daily life for grandma and all of the apparent reasons why she could not make a difference, she stood up and declared that I am an American and we are one America. And our greatest and best days are in front of us if we are willing to move towards one another, if we're willing to do the work of forgiveness, if we're willing to open up our hearts and our minds and to dream again, if we're willing to hear the words of President John F. Kennedy when he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country."
Yeah.
I was raised during the Civil Rights Movement in a Republican household. I don't think I knew any other black Republicans at that time. It's an important part of my story, however, because I sat around the dinner table and my father talked about the free enterprise system. And he would say that I do not want you to be dash born and dash dead. You're here on this planet, on this earth to make a difference. He also said you are African. You are born of a royal priesthood, you're kings and you're queens, but you're in America. And your service is to America. And sitting around that table, I believed that anything was possible in America. I have never believed that being black was a handicap. I've never believed that being a woman was a handicap, because I have believed in the power of Almighty God within me, not a God up in the sky, but the power of a presence, the light and the creative process and presence that says that each and every one of us share the same heartbeat. So I want to be clear, yes, we're in a crisis in America. Within this crisis, inherent in this crisis is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for new voices. It's an opportunity for a new vision. However, we cannot achieve a vision for America when voices are left out. There are 300 million of us who are proud Americans, and all of us came from somewhere else, most of us anyway. And so one of the things that is most important for you to hear today and for me to say is that the way forward is through our realization that we are global citizens. We are global citizens. And American exceptionalism, I'm not sure what that means to you, but what it means to me is that we're people of truth. We're people of integrity. We're people who value and appreciate life in all of its forms. That's the only American exceptionalism that I want to buy into.
Yeah.
As global citizens, we must realize that every time something is said about another race or people, we're talking about Americans. We're talking about Americans. Just stop and think for a moment. Whenever something is said about someone that we think is from Mars, but really they're from Iraq, and they're from Venus when really they're from Iran, we are talking about people who share our humanity. Pause for a moment and think about that. We're talking about people who are fundamentally more like us than they are different. And so if we are to go forward as America, it is important to understand that nobody is going to keep us safe. I don't care who's in the White House, and I'm not going to promise you that. We will be kept safe to the extent that we do the inner work of becoming peaceful ourselves. We created ISIS. We created ISIS. And we're going to carpet bomb ISIS. Where would we start to do that at? Where do you suggest we begin? Where we begin is right here and right now. Understanding that change begins with each and every individual. It starts with us. It starts with our heart. It starts with our integrity. It starts with our passion and compassion for other human beings. There is no safety for America until and unless we confront and face our shadow. It is arrogant. It is arrogant to refuse to admit that at times we've lost our way. It is a profound act of humility to say, please forgive me, I'm sorry. It takes tremendous courage to look in the mirror and say, I'm not proud of everything that I have ever done, but I have an opportunity and a new day to do it over and to do it again. And so as Americans, our past is our collective history. What America has done, we have all done. What America has done, we have all done. And we share that past. And it is only us together that can let it go. I want to say to you that where we are is a really good place. I want you to believe that where we are is a really good place. When Dr. Martin Luther King said, I've been to the mountaintop and I see the promised land, he said, I may not get there with you, but we as a people, we're going to make it to the promised land. Beloved, my sisters and brothers, the promised land is right here and right now. It is not over yonder by and by, and America is called to lead the world in a spiritual renaissance. Our best days are ahead of us. The glory of America we have not begun to glimpse, and all that we have done, and all the wrong turns that we have made is compost. It is fertilizer that is going to grow the new plants and the harvest. If we could just stop and take this moment and be willing to say, yes, America is great. But America has not always lived up to our greatness. We have not always taken the high road. And every time we invaded a country, it had nothing to do with whether Gaddafi was hurting his own people. We must tell the truth. We must tell the truth. Dominance and arrogance and control. Where has that gotten us as a nation? Stop and think about it for a moment. Domination, control, aggression, manipulation. Where has that gotten us as a nation? There is another way forward. There is another way to lead. There is another way to share leadership. There is a different path forward for America. What is true, what is absolutely true, is that bullies are normally fearful people. Can anybody ever remember being a bully or being attacked by a bully? Bullies are normally very frightful people. And so, the day for bullying is over. I do a lot of traveling. I've been a number of countries. And what I hear from other people is, what is wrong with you Americans? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? The way forward is not through bullying. The way forward is not to topple Iran. Just stop and think for a moment about the rhetoric that we're hearing. I want you to stop for a moment and say, and ask yourself, what makes your children or your grandchildren any more important than an Iranian child? Stop and think for a moment. I have no idea what people who call themselves Christians in one breath and the other breath says that it's okay for us, it is okay for us to kill innocent women and children. I don't know what Jesus you worship. I don't know who we pray to, that it would be okay to kill innocent women and children anywhere in order to preserve America's interests. Are those the interests of you? Are those interests ones that you hold dear? Why is it necessary for us to take and to grab? Why is the level of greed and oppression and aggression? There is another way. The good news is, I believe the good news is, we are right where we need to be in this moment. If we can look at this from a larger perspective, we can say that there really have been no mistakes. Because in my life, what I can tell you is every wrong road has led me to here. Every wrong turn and every dead-end street has resulted in my being here today. Now, I didn't always know that. I wasn't always really clear about that. But I want you to grasp the truth of that. And I want you to feel deep within you that it's no one's fault. Can you feel that? There is no one to blame. There is no one to demonize. There is no one to vilify. Our greatest strength in America is our diversity.
Yeah.
And when we demonize and vilify people who believe differently, we are robbing ourselves of the potential to harvest the collective wisdom and intelligence that we all bring. Why am I here? I am here because I travel across this country and I sit in groups, very diverse groups. And so I go to Tea Party meetings, I go to Republican meetings, I go to Democrat meetings, I go to Christian meetings, I go to Buddhist chants. And what I have come to understand is we're all the same. When I get together with some of my progressive friends and I hear political conversations, I go, wow, that's not how it's presented in public. It's presented in such a way that we are so divided. Because see, that's what we believe gets the money. And that's how we pander to special interests. What I would suggest to you that if we would stop, because it is necessary to stop doing it the way we have been doing it. Stop demeaning anyone because of what happened 30 years ago. Stop it. Because whatever we do to someone else, we do it to ourselves. America is no greater than the least among us. And so what happened 30 years ago, I don't believe is nearly as relevant as Benghazi. And for me, I can't get beyond Benghazi, no matter how hard I try. Because I believe that all politicians must be accountable. Accountable because we are servants. And whatever one politician does, we all do. Whatever the president does, we all do. I can't get beyond drones. Somehow I cannot compute. I cannot get to it is okay for drones to kill people. I can't get there. No matter how hard I try. I cannot understand how we as people allow a conversation about abortion to be pro-life and pro-choice. Are pro-life people really pro-life? Think about it. How many children right in this town go to bed hungry every night? I came out of the library the other day and it was so windy. It was about 5:30. And there was an elderly man in a wheelchair with no hat and a sweater on. And I knew he was going to spend all night in the street. Are we pro-life? I have witnessed people in evening gowns stepping over homeless people going into the theater. Are we pro-life? And so why would we engage in a conversation pro-life and pro-choice? Someone's got to be good and someone's got to be bad. Someone's got to be right and someone's got to be wrong. And that's the way the current political situation is set up. Why is it that we cannot all be pro-life and say that it is totally not a part of the conversation what happens to a woman's body? That's not a political issue. What is a political issue is what the government is willing to pay for or not. But whether or not a woman has control over her body is not a political issue. And women, we have so much power we don't use. If we came together and said, how do we preserve life? How do we ensure that every woman has every possible opportunity afforded to her, irregardless of her race, how much money she has, where she was born? And that we are going to take care of that child and value the preciousness of that life. Isn't that different from the current conversation? The current conversation simply divides us, and there is no win. There is no win. We can win when we begin to look at the issues and say, let's go back to the golden rule and say, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. So if it was your daughter at 16 years old and pregnant, what would you want for your daughter? If it was your mother at 48 years old and pregnant, what would you want for your mother? If it was your sister pregnant for the 5th time in a household where you're making minimum wage, what would you want? See, that takes the conversation to a different level. And so the America going forward, what my campaign and my presidency is about, it's about people first. It's about no matter what the issue and what the conversation is, it's about people first. It's about our shared humanity, and it's about the very basics, the golden rule. If I were in your position, how would I like this happening or said to me? Many people ask me, what is your platform? And there can be no platform that makes sense until we change the narrative. The platform about foreign policy and how we're going to stay safe is an insane conversation. No one is afraid of America anymore, and that is not because of Barack Obama. You need to hear that. No one is afraid of America anymore, and that is not because of Barack Obama. And that's a good thing. Why do we need people to be afraid of us? Why can't we stand up and be the great people that we are? We have so much to offer any nation. Why can't we, from this day forward, be the example of how we want the rest of the world to behave? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine our leaders leading from a way of integrity, of respect for all of our global citizens, for the leaders of other nations, and for the citizens of other nations? Unless we talk about the educational system in America, no other conversation makes sense. Why is that? Because we're educated to be puppets. By the time anyone in America gets to 5th grade, the natural creative ability has been completely destroyed through our educational system. And unless we face that, unless we deal with that and stop demonizing teachers, stop vilifying the parents, stop criticizing the students, and say, we have a system in place that no longer works. It didn't work 30 years ago, and it doesn't work now. These are the conversations that we must have going forward. Unless we change the institutions in our society that form the very core of America, America has no future. America has no future. Think about it. We have a herd mentality. Many of us cannot remember the last time we had an independent thought. We are not critical thinkers. We're not creative thinkers. Think about that for a moment. We react. We react, we react, and we react. Taking back our power as people and as citizens says that I'm not going to react, that I will not accept anything. And even from me, I will not accept anything without questioning. We listen. We listen to our spiritual leaders, we listen to our political leaders, we listen to our government leaders, and we sit there and we know what they're saying is not true. And we know that we have answers and solutions that we could bring. What keeps us from getting up and participating? Because we're not educated to do that. We're trained to conform. We're trained to conform, we're trained to get a job, we're trained to work on a job for the rest of our lives. And that isn't working anymore because there are no jobs. So do we blame China because there are no jobs? Or do we say that we're in America, we stopped being innovative? We stopped being creative. We became so complacent and so sure of who we are that we stopped competing from a healthy perspective. Whenever someone believes that 47% of Americans are lazy, you don't know who Americans are. That you could conceive the thought that 47% of Americans are a weight on this country. You don't know the beauty and the gifts and the brilliance and the talent of America. We are hardwired to be productive. That's who Americans are. And the people that are marginalized, the people who are left out, the people who are invisible because they don't have money, they don't have degrees, they're not the right color, they don't live in the right neighborhood. That is the power that America needs today. That is the wisdom that America needs today. What I can tell you is you can go in any inner city, urban area, rural area in America, and there are young people with so much wisdom and so much knowledge and such a desire to participate in the American dream. And so first, we must look at our own attitude, our heart, and that we're global citizens. We must look at the educational system and how do we do business? I don't want to fight the 1%. I cannot find anything inherently evil about the 1%. I can't. And in addition to that, when I look at and research who the 1% are, many of them are recently on that list. Think about it. And so the way that I'd like to ask you to look at that is to say, how can we collaborate with the 1%? If corporations are people, then why can't we expect them to act like people? And people have a heart. Think about that. Corporations are people. And people have a heart. And people have a soul. So why not look at how we can have heart-centered, soulful business relationships with corporate America? How we can tap into the wisdom and information and creativity of the 1% so that we can, in cities and communities all across America, begin to create wealth. I don't care what anyone tells you. Please listen to me. It is no one's fault, the inequality of income at this moment. It is based upon how our nation was structured. Systemically, it is inevitable that we arrived at the place where we are today. And I need you to hear that. Because as long as we're blaming and marginalizing people, we're not going to get where we need to go. It is no one's fault. The way our country was structured systemically is why we're here. The only way to change it is to create wealth on the community level. And that is what my campaign and presidency is about. And so I am issuing a call to action to everyone in America, and especially to anyone else running for president. Between now and November, what will we do? So let me tell you what we're going to do here in Santa Barbara. Between now and November, we will create jobs for people right here in Santa Barbara. Everywhere we go in this nation, between now and November, we're looking to spotlight and showcase what's happening in cities. We are not going into a city using money for television ads to demean or minimize anyone. We're going into a city to spotlight and to uplift the good that's happening in that city. Because in cities and communities all over America, there are amazing things happening. Not just that, the solution to every problem that we're throwing money at now, we already know what the solutions are. It's happening in every city. It's happening in communities, and it's going on very quietly. The people who know how to solve the problems are not the people who's getting the funding. They're not the people who's getting the funding. And so as we go from city to city and state to state, we're going first to celebrate America. We're going dancing. We're going to dance all over America. And we're going to hug a whole bunch of people. And we're going to create jobs and put people into businesses. We're working with business people here in Santa Barbara. And it is really, really exciting to be able to say that anyone with a dream, with the courage to stand up and say, I have a dream, willing to do the work to put that on the paper into what we call a life plan, you can be into business, a successful business, long before November. I am calling for corporations, foundations, businesses to invest $1 billion into inner cities between now and November. Let me say that again. I am calling for corporations, business, foundations to invest $1 billion into inner cities between now and November. How will your life be different based upon this current rhetoric? Haven't we been here before? Haven't we been so excited over a candidate and all enthused, and then election day comes and January comes and then it's February, it's March, and it's June and July, and we're so frustrated. I will never, ever tell you what you want to hear. What I will do is speak to you from my heart and my soul. I will share the wisdom that I've been blessed with, and I will create a space for your wisdom. I will create a space for your voice. I will create a platform for you to share with America who you are. Candidates, all of us, we talk much too much. We have Americans all over this country that have so much to say. But what about race? I do not want to live in an America where there's any special provisions for me because I'm a woman of color. I do not want to live in America where there's any special provisions for anyone because of their color. Either all boats rise or there is no future for America. Affirmative action was not the best choice. Let me say that again. Affirmative action was not the best choice. We have a tendency in America to want to solve problems quickly. And most of the time, we have not clearly defined what the problem is that we're solving before we pass a bill and put money into it. First of all, people have within themselves everything they need to solve their own problems. And I need you to hear this. There is a certain amount of arrogance involved in believing that someone else needs me or you to solve their problems. And there's a certain amount of ego building that goes on when we do that, isn't there? Everyone has the wisdom within our own heart and soul to solve our own problems. Everyone. What we do need is someone to walk alongside of us. What we do need is someone to guide us and to help build us up and to keep us accountable. But we don't need people pumping money into areas with solutions for problems. That hasn't worked. Why hasn't it worked? Because if it worked, then you'd be out of a job. The politicians couldn't get up again and talk about homelessness if there was no homelessness. Think about it. That would not be a talking point in the election next year if homelessness was solved. And so what we're asking, what we're suggesting, what we're leading is a different way forward. Why can't we solve the problem of homelessness in Santa Barbara between now and next year? Can you imagine Harriet Tubman asking for a feasibility study to see if, in fact, the Underground Railroad was doable? Think about that a moment. Can you imagine her asking for a 15-year plan to end slavery? Think about that. There's a 15-year plan in place in almost every city in America to end homelessness. Can you imagine Harriet Tubman saying, I'm free? Now, we need 15 years to figure out a strategy as to how we can free everybody else. Think about that. Think about that. We do feasibility studies to do another feasibility study about the feasibility of that study. Can we cut through that? Can we come together in the greatness that we are and say, every able-bodied person should be productive? And so our goal is to help every able-bodied person be productive. But every human being needs a roof over their head and a bed to sleep in. And so it is not either or. And as I go forth on this campaign, you will hear me say that over and over again. We want black and white. We want simple answers. Life is not lived in black and white. It's lived in the gray areas. Anybody relate to that? Life is lived in the gray areas. It's not black and white. And so what is true is that everybody ought to bear their own burdens. What is also true is each of us need to bear the burdens of the other. And so what is true for you today may not be your truth tomorrow. But it's not either or, it is both and. And when we say both and, there's room for Democrats, there's room for Republicans, there's room for independents. I've already started reaching out to people on both sides. I am smart enough to put together a powerful cabinet. And let me tell you, that cabinet is going to be stacked with women. It's going to be stacked with women who understand leading from the heart. It's going to be stacked with women who have the courage to say no more. No more to war. No more to domination. No more to aggression. Women who are powerful enough to say no more. There's a new way forward. Our campaign will focus on the work that we have done collectively over the past 30 years. We have used music, dance, drama, art, and poetry to create spaces across perceived differences and build bridges. And as we travel across America, we're going to do festivals with an economic model. We have formed a collaboration with business people here in Santa Barbara that we're going to take all over the world and certainly all over the U.S. so that by the time we leave a city, someone's life in that city is changed. We're not just spreading hope and change, we're actually fulfilling the hope and bringing about the change. And that's what's so exciting to me, that we have the ability between now and November to impact our nation in such a way that when I stand up in January and take the oath of office, it'll be a very different America.
Yeah.
A very, very different America. I want to end by saying this morning as I was riding in the car, I felt the presence of Maya Angelou. I felt the presence of Harriet Tubman. I felt the presence of Sojourner Truth. and Eleanor Roosevelt was also there. Susan B. Anthony was whispering in my ear, and Shirley Chisholm was saying, "Go girl, you do your thing." And I knew in that moment that I am not alone and we are not alone, that we are, in fact, the vision carriers and bearers for so many women and men who came before us. The way has been paved. The path is clear. We must be willing to stand up with the power and the fire of Harriet Tubman. Eleanor Roosevelt said we must do the thing that we're most afraid of. We must move into the fear and come through on the other side. Shirley Chisholm stood up and said that there is no freedom for anybody in America until we're all free. And Sojourner Truth said, "Brethren, I want to tell you something. If women are not free, nobody's ever going to be free." She said, "Ain't I a woman?" And she traveled walking on 2 feet across America saying, "Ain't I a woman?" and talking about the need for women to be free. The women's movement, the real heroes, we don't know their names. We really don't know their names. Because there were women who pulled their money together, thousands of dollars, $2 here and $3 here, but believed that women had to be free. And I want to close with a call to women. We're calling for a women's march, not a protest march, but a declaration march of women leading. Women leading not according to the old paradigm. Women leading not in a man's world. That day is gone. Women leading from an agenda of women who know the world that we want to create. And we're leading with our brothers, walking alongside, but we're not accepting the status quo as the way that it's been before. Women, if we close shop, and I mean that literally, including our checkbooks, our pocketbooks, and all entry points, we can have an amazing impact on this nation. We have more power than we know. We really do. Think about it. Think about the power that we have as women. If we simply say that if we want our nation to avoid World War III, if we want to avoid another civil war, if we want to rise to the greatness that we're called to be, if we want America to be a light, if we truly believe that we can live in a world of peace and plenty, it is time for us to rise. Join us on the campaign on the road to the White House. We are unstoppable, without a doubt. We are serious. We're taking back our nation, and we're doing it with hearts filled with love. We're doing it saying, "Beloved, beloved, we are all Americans. Beloved, my future is inextricably linked with yours. My child is no different than your child, and the future of your grandchild is linked with the future of mine." God bless you, and God bless America.
Yeah.
Whoa, very good. It's not so loud. Yeah.
Thank you, Audrey. That was great. If anybody wants to talk to Audrey, you're more than welcome to come up and talk to her.
Well, let's see what some of them have to say.
If anybody has any comments that they would like to say something, you're more than welcome to stand up and say. You can speak in the mic if you like to. I don't know how much.
I would just like to say I have the privilege of having these two wonderful people in my home for a week. And for years I've been saying, I don't care what party they are, I would like to just vote for someone with some integrity, you know, some ethics somewhere. And these guys are the real deal. This is what I've been looking for. Not only do I resonate so much with leading from the heart instead of the fist, but just knowing that they are, what you see is what you get. And Audrey would be the kind of leader that would make our nation proud, would make me proud to raise my grandchildren. So.
Would anybody else like to come up and make a comment? All right, thank you everybody. We really appreciate this. We will be streaming this across the world as soon as we get through here. We'll put